Greetings to a very relevant topic today, security audits. Given the hacks in the news, most enterprises are either considering or sprucing up their security audits. But what are we missing? To help us understand the threat and the possible solutions, we have cyber and startup expert Dmitry Sokolovsky. Hi, Dmitry.
Hi, Ashley. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming. So first, Dmitry, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your background in cyber and security?
Absolutely. I started my career in IT in 98, so 25 or so years of general IT experience. But the first 10 years of that were IT work of all kinds, from desktop support to data center operations, network operations center, consulting for DoD contractors, and so on. In 2007, I got a call from CyberArk to come join them as they were building out their US presence. I was a third PS engineer to join the team. And for the next 9 years, I ran the implementation services team for CyberArk, incident response for some of the biggest breaches at the time, and general security and tool deployment and advisory to our customers. Starting in 2016, CyberArk started looking at this new thing that just came out in the market called cloud. I'm joking. And started looking at their own SaaS solutions. And I shifted from implementation work and became the cloud security architect for CyberArk for the last 2 years at the company. And eventually moved over to Avid as the chief information security officer and a chief security officer, responsible both for enterprise and corporate security as the CISO and for product security as the CSO, both in terms of making sure that products have necessary security features for my counterparts to be able to use, as well as making sure that the product itself is made securely, so we don't end up being the next SolarWinds. Ironically, they're in the news right now, so that's fairly relevant. Starting at 2012, when I got my CISSP certification, I also started mentoring and instructing for SANS, both for the CISSP class, the Level 5 Enterprise Defender certification, and eventually, when they ran out of instructors for the foundational security classes, even that one as well. Then COVID hit, and my educational career slowed down a little bit. But I transferred all those skills to advisory, basically cybersecurity startups of all kinds. Every sales call coming my way, I take, and I usually use it as a opportunity to educate the vendors a little bit to make them be better for me as a CISO and for other CISOs as well. And some of them turned into actually official gigs. So I'm on either 5 or 6 advisory boards right now as an official advisor, a whole bunch unofficially. And am I missing anything? I think that's it. That probably wraps up audience first, the biggest thing. This thing that I was doing for the startups, Danny Wolf and myself, we met using it on this topic. How do we make vendors better? How do we make vendors not flood the inboxes? How do we make vendors not do cold calling, and so on and so on? And we agreed that there's education missing. So we actually came out with a couple of classes that have been delivering to the cybersecurity vendor community for the last year and a half or so. So principal advisor and lead instructor for Audience First would be the last title probably that I'm carrying right now.
Very cool. So let's jump into it. So what exactly is a security audit?
Well, in the eyes of the beholder, the assessment of security, that would be the easiest way to describe that. But as with most things, security definitions matter. Understanding of what we're trying to achieve matters before you start the work. And that's one of the problems we deal with CISOs, is that we get a lot of business requests in definitions only. They might come to us, hey, we need a security audit. Well, what does that mean exactly? What exactly do you want to audit? Do you want to audit us? Are we doing good work as a security team? Are we doing the audit of you, the business, from security perspective? What exactly are we auditing? And this part is usually missing from the audit prep itself. Before the vendor is engaged, we have a business team and we have a security team, and there is no agreement on the definitions of what these things actually mean. What are we trying to achieve? What is the end goal for business or for security? Add to that general misunderstanding of what business is doing by the security team and what is security doing by the business team. The usual butting of the heads occurs, and security audit turns into 4 different things as it's happening, usually ending up with some form of a report that checks the box for someone somewhere, compliance orientation in most cases, and really no positive outcome from an audit like that. So that's the worst case scenario for an audit, for a security audit. If we look at it from the perspective of achieving an objective, what are we trying to actually figure out? What's the audit for? In some cases, when the security team is mature enough or have reached the level of maturity to recognize that they need to assess themselves, how well are we doing as a security team? That is a self-audit, self-assessment, right? This is something that security teams should be doing consistently, at least once a quarter, regardless of what else you're doing. But self-assess to figure out how well you do things. How much do you understand about what you do? Do you have gaps in understanding of basic things about yourself? We always assume we're good at what we do, professionals and so on. You know, psychiatrists go and sit in front of other psychiatrists and talk to them as patients. The people that work on our brains understand that they have to work on their brains as well. But that's not propagating down to pretty much any other industry systematically. You know, there are spots here and there. So that is a thing that needs to happen regardless of how business sees the security team. As a security team starts self-assessing, it's going to start recognizing where it's butting heads with business. Again, even if business is not aware, is not fully engaged, is not mature enough to understand this dynamic, if the security team does that and starts doing it, it'll spread. It'll become better for them, for their interaction with the business, and eventually, hopefully, shift into the business starting to assess itself as well. So security audit, meaning auditing of the security team. The second level up from there would be an audit of the business itself by the security team. We're looking for how well we, as a security team, engage and interact with the business. Do we even understand what the business is doing? A lot of cybersecurity teams, maybe with exception of some of the top leaders of those teams, don't really fully understand what the company is doing. They're doing their own little thing. I'm here doing my identity and access management. I'm doing vulnerability management. I'm doing malware response. What's the company doing? Well, I don't know. We sell some boxes somewhere, and that's about it. I know we're in audio and video, or whatever may be the case. There is a gap there. So understanding of how the team interacts with business and recognizing that the cybersecurity team is not the priority, the business is the next level up. So the audit of the interaction, of the relationship between the two teams. And when you've achieved self-assessment cadence of some kind, and you have achieved at least some partial cadence of relationship assessment, you can attempt to offer the assessment to the business, because you now are more aware about yourself, you are more aware about the relationship with the business, and therefore you're in a better position to actually offer something to business that is valuable to the business, something that is aimed at increasing profits, something that is aimed at reducing costs, and keeping compliance as a byproduct of those two items. And so the final security audit would be of the business and the way business operates. But again, the important part here is keeping in mind that it is a relationship. Just like a married couple wouldn't want to be sort of the prosecutors of each other and more of partners and helping each other, in a similar fashion, the team needs to approach it with that in mind. Not, hey, let me fix some things you're doing wrong, and more of, let's understand why we're doing this, and maybe we got some better options that we can try and work on together. And so this last, again, in this progression of complexities and points of view, that would be the last type of a security audit that um, I would name.
And would you say most companies have the skills and tools available to do a security audit?
uh, no. Uh, I think that there's always a three-layer cake for this. There has to be people that are doing this work in general, dedicated to this kind of work. There has to be a process that these people follow, some formalized process. And then if these people have the time to flow through the process, however formalized it is, there may be a need for some tooling. They can speed it up. Now, we know that there's a shortage of cybersecurity professionals. So majority of the companies, both for the reasons of their budget limitations and limitations in available talent, don't have enough of or at all necessary people for this job. Those that do, because the industry is fairly young, because we are not really yet orienting ourselves as a service delivery function to the business, the processes themselves are at best limited to just basic functionality as a security component, not as a relationship management for two business functions, security and whatever the business is. And so we lack in people, we lack in process. And if we lack in people and lack in process, no matter what tools we have, it's not going to work very well. And worse, we may end up with tooling that makes these people less efficient and the process less efficient, and as a result become a waste. And that's worst case scenario. I guess the best case scenario is that tooling is not used at all, so it's simply not creating any more negative, but it's not doing anything positive either. So this, because we have gaps in all three, majority of the companies don't have enough of the full stack to be able to be effective in building that cadence of matured security audits.
And what about identities? Should enterprises be reviewing their roles, permissions, especially their privileged users?
Absolutely. Identity. Well, so back in cyber days, we used to say computers are people too. So identities are the way we represent a human asset in the electronic world, as well as non-human behavior and assets, right? So identities is one of the foundational items. First, we got to know what we have, that just hardware components. The next thing is who do we have? Actually, it might even be reversed, but because we need to create those entries in the technical system, we usually start with, do we have a system and what is in there? Any zero trust strategy that you'd like to deploy or even start looking at requires you to know who you have and what should these people or non-people be able to do or not be able to do. And if you don't have your identities in order, if you're not assessing them as part of any of these audits, you're missing everything. You can no longer rely on any of the results if the foundation isn't reliable. If the data that we have there is not reliable. So absolutely, identities, one of the starting points. Data can sit somewhere and not be touched. Systems can run and not be touched if there is no identity that has necessary permissions to get in there. So this is absolutely critical.
Okay, so that's where UATest comes in. So Garrett, would you say UATest can help in these identity and permission assessments?
Yeah, and the last part that Dmitry was talking about was the identities, the roles and permissions. That's exactly what UATest as a tool does. It allows an enterprise or a security professional like Dmitry to take an enterprise's all their entitlements, pump it through our system, and then UATest pushes it out to the managers of both the resources and of the actual humans and says, okay, these are the permissions that you are granted. Are you good with these privileges? And then the enterprise, as Dmitry said in the beginning, have to be secure, etc. Our friends over at the SEC said that who was at the SolarWinds and their CISO claimed to performing the principle of least privilege, but weren't exactly doing that. And that's what UATest comes in. It's a regular, it could be done once. And I got a couple of enterprises doing this. As soon as they got hacked, they said, hey, we should do an identity assessment, but it's best to be done on a periodic basis to practice and enforce the principle of least privilege. And then Dmitry's nodding, so I think I said something right. So there we go. That's what UATest is.
Absolutely. And I would add that UATest covers the three pieces that we talked about. First, it saves you time. Therefore, the people element doesn't need to be as big as if you had to do this by hand. Second, it saves time by going directly to the business, if I understand correctly, right? The requests are going directly to the business units, which is music to my ears. If my team doesn't need to engage at all and it's simply controlling the environment, but the business makes the decisions, that's perfect. Business is actually part of the discussion. And the tooling itself in this case is helpful for the process and for the people. And so that is a good way for a vendor to start.
Nice.
Perfect. Dmitry, can you tell the audience how to get a hold of you?
Absolutely. You can find me on LinkedIn, my first name, my last name. That's pretty much it. I'm fairly active there. If you have any questions, if you would like to discuss a product or an idea, just reach out to me, and I usually respond within a day.
Awesome. And then us at UATest, we can be reached at info@uatest.com, and we'll get you going on your next identity audits. Thank you so much, Dmitry. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Ashley. Thank you.
Good stuff. Thank you.